All right, this is Tempest from Target Fixation and, sorry, Target Fixation Gaming. I can never complete that, I don't know why, but also from Remedy This podcast. And today I just wanted to do something a little different. Last night I did sort of start this, but I had some trouble. I wasn't feeling all that great, and I wasn't able to get it all out. Having trouble getting ourselves advertised, or at least out there. And aware that we're doing any lives. So I just kind of threw out a X post hoping that it will be seen. And we're just gonna go ahead and start. The post that I put out actually says, we have a lot to say about this. Let's do it. Control Resonant. And the picture, if you're on YouTube and you clicked on the thumbnail, it's a picture of the Trinity nuclear experiment in 1945 in New York, or sorry, not New York, in New Mexico, out in the desert. And we all know about it. We don't need a history lesson here, but what we do need to talk about is something, kind of a revelation that I have had. And like, I don't know if anybody's had this before. Let me know if you have. I can sort of see my chat on Twitch, but on YouTube, kind of. It's really iffy. We'll see. But if you have a chat, definitely let me know. If you have something to elaborate, let me know. But here it is. I'm going to tell you how this started. So we were doing a live. I think it was Jay and I. We were doing a live recently, and we were talking about Control and Control Resonant, and I think we're talking about the slides, and I had this, because I'm always talking about the, radiation, the heat, the nuclear radiation, this and that. And like some of that's adding up in the trailers and things like that. In the Edge article, I think they were talking about heat as a thing, and something that it was kind of already very obvious. But so I started thinking about the slides and the different interpretations and different things that I've actually thought about them over the years. And I'm like, okay. So these slides, I don't remember what made me think of them, but I was sitting here at my desk just thinking. And I'm like, okay, well, there's this house slide. I think I was like trying to like make sense of a certain one. And I think it might have been the hiss one, the one that Trench has. And I was like, let's take that and just see what we can do, how we can match them up with the other slides. So there's house, meadow, temple, and the hand. So house, that's it's described as where Jesse and Dylan play. It's abandoned, and seems pretty, I guess, benign. The meadow, it gets more weird here. Everything around it melts, and they don't like that one. Nosebleed Neil, the kid named Neil that gets picked on, that turns into a dog, in that slide, I guess. That's where that happens. The temple, interesting, is where it's said to be, the Not Mother is said to be. So we've got a description. It describes it like a concrete warehouse or like bomb shelter, right? So, and then the hand, or Slidescape 36, is where both Polaris, or the Hadron Resonance, and the Hiss Resonance both originate from. So I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, bomb shelter, that's what got me first. I'm like, the bomb shelter, okay, that makes sense when it comes to nuclear, blasts, if we want to, just take it a step further than, just radiation and heat. And the meadow, everything around it melts, everything around the slide projector melts when the meadow is the slide that's being activated. Well, of course, we know in the desert, after the detonation, the nuclear blast, it melted all of the sand in the area, all the surrounding, sand was melted into like green glass. So melting makes sense. And so let's see, the temple, again, bomb shelter, and the Not Mother. So you have to be a Twin Peaks fan to know about this. In Twin Peaks, there's an entity. It's the Mother Experiment. You'll see in episode 1, they have, it's very clear, they have a container that is almost identical to the containment cells that they use in Control. So that, to me, represents the Not Mother. The Not Mother in the temple slide represents the mother of all evil in Twin Peaks. So the mother of all evil is that, again, like I said, I have to speak as if you haven't seen Twin Peaks, but also as if you have, because some of you have, some of you haven't. And which is why I am basically declaring, in my opinion, that the, I guess, roots of Control come from episode 8 of Twin Peaks: The Return. So, and I'll just keep on elaborating even more and more. It makes more and more sense the more we go. So yeah, we're going back to the Slidescape 36, where the resonance comes from. And let's see, I made some notes. I think this is likely in the Twin Peaks episode, after the bomb is detonated, there is, I can't go into really, how this happens, but there's a countermeasure taken in that episode. And the countermeasure turns out to be someone significant in the series, and it's in an orb. So we show the explosion is to represent the evil that men do. And we hear this line said in the episode in reference to the entity that is terrorizing and killing and doing horrible things. So the evil that men do is the bomb, the explosion. And that is countered by the good, which happens to be the character in the show. And it's a very odd episode. I think it took people to time to wrap their minds around it, because it was so not the Twin Peaks season 1 and 2 that they remember. And so anyway, I'm just really excited here, because like this all just kind of hit me all at once. And I don't hear people, when I say hear, but I don't see any posts. If I go forward today and see any posts about this in X or anywhere now, then I'm going to be like, hey, like we've had to do with some of our very strange posts that we end up seeing someone else post. But anyway, let's see, we're kind of going into the whole Twin Peaks thing, because this is much easier to understand if you've seen. This is Twin Peaks: The Return, which is, I guess, technically episode 3. Episode 8, I'm sorry, season 3, episode 8, and it's called Got a Light. Now, what's also interesting about this, again, that I'm hearing the music from the game in the background, and I don't like it because I turned it down. I don't know why I'm hearing it. So I have it on just gameplay right now. She's just there with the floating hiss. You can obviously see, but I have to have it on some kind of gameplay footage, otherwise the video, you won't be able to hear me, and that would suck. I'd be talking to myself, and that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid, because I can't get through on X. Our following is just too small. So anyway, let's see. We went to the temple. So I just want to go over my notes and see if I miss anything. So yeah, this entity, this mother of all evil, often referred to as Judy or Jaude. Yeah, referred to as the mother of all evil, and the entity is shown floating through a space, an empty space, and she spews this like gelatinous substance, and it has like these eggs, and it also has an orb, kind of like the one that we see, the good one, the countermeasure this orb contains the evil that men do, an evil entity that, yeah, like I said, will go forth and do bad things. So again, that's countered with the good, and they send it off on its journey towards Earth. And I know that's so vague, and I know I'm not explaining who they are, but again, there's a lot of people who haven't watched Twin Peaks, who haven't watched The Return, and I'm just trying to be kind of neutral about it. So see, it's clear that the sequence, because episode 8 isn't only about this, but this particular sequence, I wish I could give you the timestamps on it, but it's right after a musical performance by Nine Inch Nails, or the Nine Inch Nails as they call them in the show. And then you can see that whole sequence, and I believe it runs from there to the very end of the show. So, yeah, so that, I think that the events of Control are based off of, or began with something that happened in real life, a real life event that they, that he elaborated on and added, the fiction to, which is a good thing, of course. And of course, it happened in the desert. Now, that's another topic that keeps getting left out of this new, Control Resonant. Everybody's excited about just the fact that Control is back, but the, I guess, gameplay, we've been seeing a lot of gameplay stuff. We've been seeing a little bit of, like, whatever they show, excuse me, hang on. Whatever they show on the new, whatever they release. Today I saw on YouTube that Remedy released some new, I guess, kind of information about the game. Nothing so much about the characters as much as, like, the game, what it looks like, and, kind of the experience that we're gonna have. And that's great. I know it's gonna come eventually, and that we're gonna hear more about the characters, and that we're gonna get a release date soon. So I had chimed into the April Fools or whatever it was they posted about a release date. All it said was release date, and it had like prison bars, so it's like, okay, yeah, but the release date, I'm sort of predicting August, the same month that Control, the first Control came out. So that's just my prediction. Whatever you think, let us know in the comments. We would love to know what other people think we're going to see in terms of a release date and when. I think it's going to be sooner than later. I just have this feeling it might be just hype, just that I'm excited, but and wishful thinking. Maybe part of it is wishful thinking as well. Sorry about the mic thing. So yeah, let's just go ahead and see what else we can tie into it. Okay, so we got, now again, the experiment in Trinity, that reminds me of Polaris. Okay, and actually, let me take us back a little bit further. The countermeasure, I believe that Polaris is supposed to represent that countermeasure. She's the good, and like I said, coming from the same slide, it makes sense. And just knowing what we know of Polaris, and helping Jesse and Dylan, it makes sense. In fact, the scales must always balance, a fictional writer once said. Something I put in my notes just as a joke, but that's true. That's, the whole countermeasure, the balance. Polaris is there, and but yeah, let's see. One of a couple other things about the countermeasure. Polaris, yes, the Trinity thing. I think that could very well just kind of be in reference to the name of the test, Trinity. Polaris is I call it a 3-star system. It's also referred to as a triple star, aka the North Star, of course. In this case, Polaris is good. And since Jesse and Dylan had been exposed to Polaris, Jesse and Dylan are, like, in a sense, part of her, or she's part of them, however you want to look at it. Yeah, so, I don't know, I guess, in this case, we have the entity itself, so Polaris plus Jesse plus Dylan completing that system. So, you know, they're not stars in a literal sense, but I think the idea, again, was inspiration for Polaris and that triple star system that, you know, exists in real life. So, okay, so if we're going to talk about slides, talked about the hand. If we're going to talk about the hand, then we do have to talk about maybe where that name came from. And it would be sort of negligent not to mention The Hand of God, which is a book written by J. Robert Oppenheimer. Some people say Oppenheimer, I say Oppenheimer. Since this isn't a history lesson, we'll just, you know, do a quick refresher. But J. Robert Oppenheimer was the director of the Manhattan Project, which is, of course, where the Trinity, you know, thing came from. And he's also referred to as the father of the atomic bomb. So when you think of Manhattan, when you think of this whole Manhattan Project, I think of Control, and Control Resonant especially, that he's supposed to be, Dylan is out to save Manhattan, or he has to fight through this version of Manhattan that's been, you know, taken over by the hiss and the mold and all the bad things. So we're sort of talking still about the slides. We would actually would be even negligent too if we didn't go with the unnamed slide, the hiss slide, the one that Trench, you know, activated. So we knew Trench had this slide, no one else did, but he and Dr. Darling, they went into the Slidescape together, Slidescape 36. And I think that likely, and I'll tell you why later, that his slide, the burnt slide, may have gotten corrupted there by the hiss resonance. And that comes from my idea, that my hypothesis is that that is a reference to what that Trinity nuclear experiment did to about how long, I think it was like well over 1,000 miles away. The Kodak Film Company, when that happened, they started getting their products damaged. So the film was being damaged by these nuclear, you know, contaminants. And this is a real story. I'm not lying. You can go look it up. But so what happened was the blast, it all of those nuclear contaminants just contaminated the water. It made its way a long way, longer than they thought it would. And so the water that they were using to make their, I guess, the packaging for the film, it was contaminated. And it made the film blurry and unusable. And so it was especially damaging to X-ray film. X-ray film was a huge problem. So they were able to find out that, yeah, that's what their problem with the film was. Okay, so we're talking about film, then we're talking about slides. Same thing. So the slide projector, you know, from the game, it makes sense that there would be some inspiration from that. What happened with the Manhattan Project and the fallout, basically. So, you know, you can do a little bit more reading on that yourself too, if you want. Something very, very interesting, and this is the one that really got me, is that, and this is something that I forgot about, but the people in the area that were affected by the blast, they were told, and I shit you not, this is a real thing, they were told that what they were experiencing was caused by an explosion at a dump. The dump, right? You get me. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, Control fans, you know what I'm talking about. The industrial accident, right? In Ordinary, the dump. That's actually what our government told people happened after that explosion. The people that were nearby that felt some of that, you know, I guess some of the, I guess, effects, you know, on their homes and on, you know, just the air and the environment. And that kind of brings me back to the slide we didn't talk about, which was House. And that is where Jesse and Dylan played, and they referred to it as Abandoned. well, that makes sense. Many people abandon their homes and their property, and sometimes even their animals, their livestock or pets or whatever. They were getting the hell out of Dodge. So, yeah, totally makes perfect sense. So I'm getting the vibes from the episode 8, from the return on Twin Peaks and the slides. That's what Control is kind of based off of. Maybe fully based off of. They all point to the same thing, even as far as the film goes, the damaged film. And we know about the pillars, the 5 pillars, and damaged film, it can be damaged like that too. But the nuclear contaminants, that's what I think contained, was that evil that ultimately became, in the game, Hiss Resonance, or what they refer to as the Hiss Resonance, that I think the trench slide was corrupted. He used the nostalgia department. Now, I don't hear that talked about in posts and stuff very often, is that he actually had to take it to the nostalgia department. The other slide, Slidescape 36, would work just fine in dimensional research. But I don't know if he tried it in the in dimensional research, because obviously Trench probably wouldn't have done that because there's other people around. But he took the slide projector to the nostalgia department. Now, we don't know much about the nostalgia department. I wish we did. I would love to know more about it. And if anybody does happen to know more about it than what we actually read about on the game, which isn't much, then I would love to know. Please tell me. But so it makes sense, though, if you're looking at it like, okay, I don't know what the nostalgia department is, but I can only guess the word nostalgia. Usually you're thinking about something in the past. Most of the time, a fond memory of the past, and we know a nuclear explosion is not a fond memory of the past, but it's still in the past. And maybe there is something in the nostalgia department or about the nostalgia department that will allow that slide to work. I really don't know. It's just I'm guessing at this point, because a burnt slide, they couldn't get at any of the other slides. It was just one slide that worked, the 36. And so I think probably after being corrupted by the Hiss Resonance and Slidescape 36, bringing it back to the nostalgia department and then putting it in and turning it on, allowed the hiss to escape. That's just my theory at the time. If I'm forgetting something, if I'm leaving something out, definitely jump in the chat and just say so. Say, yo, hey, you're forgetting about, such and such. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about these things, and we're here to, just have discussion that I can't have and that we can't have, Jay and I both. We can't have that on any platform. We're just too small. The algorithm does not count us. And I know that we've had some really successful posts, recently, but once those were done, we were done. I think we're going to shut down our account for X, for Target Fixation Gaming, and maybe just keep it for for the Remedy This podcast, so we can just put updates and reminders. But that's, I think, all. I'm really not feeling like I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm glad to see a couple people here. Thank you so much. We're gonna just keep going a little bit on let's see, we did Polaris, we talked about Kodak film, we talked about the slide projector and the slides, which again, of course, is film. And I think that that's what happened with Kodak, and the whole Manhattan Project and everything was kind of maybe played an inspiration into this. The dump, again, very, very hard to ignore the fact that those are very, it's too similar. Okay, it's just too similar. I think the dump idea, yes, that was awful, and I think that awful thing was an inspiration possibly for this, part of the story in Control. So I noticed, though, I just want to say that on one of the, I guess it was kind of a gameplay or just additional information that we got technically yesterday from Remedy, some videos they put out, there was some graffiti on a wall. It would look like graffiti, and it actually looked like the outline, it was very similar to the outline of the like that bee moth or whatever it is that's on the cover of Ultraviolet, the Poets of the Fall that we see in Control. And that makes sense because nuclear explosions, they emit thermal radiation, including ultraviolet light. So that makes 100 absolute % sense. Guys, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really excited about this. I think just knowing more about Control itself, the first game, is going to be it's going to be really helpful unless they totally just stray away. And it could be that, you know, yeah, this whole real life thing, and of course what they added in Twin Peaks, again, the evil men do, the countermeasure, this and that. You know, I guess I don't know that how I would feel if they strayed much away from that. At this point, it's kind of already been done. So now I'm kind of looking more forward to moving on and seeing what happens with like Dylan and Jesse. And I think that it's going to be strange because it doesn't sound like they're going to both be in the same game at the same time. Like, it would concern me, maybe not in a bad way, but it would concern me if they didn't meet face to face, because it would just be another example of them being kept apart. And being kept apart is kind of a recurring theme in Quantum Break, even though Remedy doesn't own Quantum Break, the rights to it anymore, whatever. You know, they're still finding ways to work in the idea, and that is really good. I really love that they're doing that. So, but I just can't stop thinking about the connection. I think there's enough evidence for there to, you know, for us to be able to consider that yes, there's a connection. So let's see, the hiss incantation, y'all. This is the water. This is the well. Twin Peaks fans, you can jump in there and say, yeah, you get it. That is like a poem that played the, gosh, okay, for non-Twin Peaks fans, we can say, sorry about my chair here, that another evil entity came in the form of a human to a radio station, and I think this is 1956. They show, like, right after the nuclear explosion test, they jump to 1956, and they do this sequence where they call him the Woodsman, and he goes into a radio station. Now, this is important. The first place he goes to is a radio station to broadcast this message. And this message is this poem. And the poem is, this is the water, and this is the well, drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within. So the Woodsman says this over and over and over. And then they show people around the town who were listening to their radios just fall asleep. They just like kind of go into this trance or whatever, and they just like collapse wherever they're at, and they fall asleep. They're not hurt, they're not injured, they just go to sleep. And so in Control, we have something similar. We have the hiss incantation. Now it's presented as something similar, but still a lot different. The way it's written and what it's supposed to mean, it doesn't work in the same way, but it also has a function. So those are two big things that are, you know, one thing, at least in his incantation, and again, something that seems to relate back to that episode 8, season 3. So, okay, then that leads me into why the radio station. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from my notes a little bit here. So yeah, in the show, we went over that he broadcasts from the radio station, the poem, and that the hiss we see are found trying to attack the board/pyramid. We never see the board, of course. We see Former, which is great. He's willing to show his face, right? But I don't think he has the same. I think his capabilities are different, but he still has some powers. I like to liken the pyramid to the radio station. So it's used to broadcast. Maybe they want to use it to broadcast the incantation, or simply the hiss resonance to corrupt many, many people, in many, many places. So I always thought of the Black Pyramid as, and I think there's a episode of the Threshold Kids where they show something very similar, or kind of alludes to the fact that it's a communication device. And it's Meg, she's drawing the pyramid, is what it is. She's drawing the pyramid, and she turns it like, it's like shown upside down, and then it has that old, it's like a sound that it made with when you had like dial-up internet. It was so funny. Like, it's always funny to hear that. But yeah, like old school dial-up internet. So again, we're talking about communication. And I think that, in broadcasting, I think that's what the Hiss are wanting to do in that case, was they were wanting to broadcast their message or their resonance to corrupt as many people and as many things as possible. So anyway, that's honestly kind of the gist of it. Like, a little fun fact here, though, that for Twin Peaks fans, though, President Harry Truman was the president when the Trinity nuclear experiment was conducted. So, of course, the sheriff in Twin Peaks named Harry Truman. I think, obviously, they did that on purpose. This all really was intentional, and I feel bad that David Lynch couldn't I guess, realize his vision in the show the way he wanted to. I think a lot of people just weren't ready for it, TV audience, that is. So, but that was, that was a cool thing. There was another thing too, the hotline. That's what it was. And I posted about this. Probably no one saw it, but the hotline. So when Twin Peaks was running, they set up what was called a hotline. And that was where people can call in. It was a 1-900 number. And that's where people could call in and they could get updates about the show, things they might have missed, and messages from the characters. So that's really cool. And I think, it's possible maybe that, Remedy sort of, added that in as a nod to or something. But I'll tell you what, I'll acknowledge this, that Control was being filmed, or at least created and developed, while Twin Peaks: The Return was running, was whatever. So it's easy to say, well, how could they do this? The Twin Peaks, was behind. Okay, that's fair, but Control, actually, they, and admittedly so, went through several different iterations of the story, of the writing, and that's like common for everything, every type of media, whether it be a song or a movie or whatever, different iterations are done all the time. They're always tweaking, they're always changing things up a bit, making, coming up with new ideas to fit in. So I think that while maybe they didn't intend to at first, maybe I'm sure there was intentions to go with some kind of Twin Peaks like theme, or throw in at least some of these, some Twin Peaks nods, and maybe even some, inspirations they took. But I don't think that it was meant to go quite this far until the episode 8 came out, and then we end up with all of these things that just are too coincidental to not say, maybe, But again, the Manhattan Project was done, or the Trinity was done in the desert. And we don't hear them talk about the most deserty thing that I've seen in Remedy games recently is, I guess it would be Dylan's flash that he has, like after you complete the game. Then you have to do all the missions, and then you can get the cat ears, and then you can go into the cell where Dylan is in his coma, and you can see that vision that he's, in a place there's a desert. So that's actually kind of the last time that we see it in relation to Dylan. The other time is not in relation to Dylan, but it's in relation to Tim Breaker. So he is in Time Breaker, he's the actor. He's not called Tim Breaker or whatever, but he's the actor, and he ends up in a desert with all these polyhedrons and empty dead ones or whatever. And they're just in this massive desert that, just goes on and on and on. So those are the only times when I oh no, there's one other time when Dylan mentions the desert, and that's when he is talking to Jesse as he's corrupted and talks about being in the desert with a slide projector. So interesting stuff, very fun to think about, and it was very awesome to just sit here and just realize it all at once. You know, sometimes it just goes that way. And I think that a lot of Remedy fans are just really on top of things. You know, I don't watch content from other content creators. Like, I love, like, say, Hidden Machine. When I first started getting into Remedy games, Hidden Machine was so underrated. I'm like, he's so underrated. We should, like, give him a shout out. And we did on our, like, very first gameplay, I think it was. And, you know, but we stopped watching his content. Like, I'll actually go, like, give likes. Even if I can't watch the videos, I'll still go give likes to these who absolutely deserve it, because they put so much time, like we do, they put so much time and energy into doing all this research for people that want to enjoy just like hearing about it and different thoughts and opinions on ideas and theories. So that's what we want to participate in, and that's what we are doing here. And it's getting so difficult to find a medium, or, you know, a place to kind of like advertise what we're doing, where we are, you know, when we're going to be on next and things like that. So that's where our podcast, I think, is going to be helpful, and a website. Well, the website is all dependent on whether or not the podcast does well. But I mean, hey, I mean, we might just do it anyway. I mean, we got, just like everybody else, we might make content, but we're still Remedy fans, and we still want to participate in Remedy fan things. And I don't know if that kind of just comes with the territory, like you just don't get to be a fan anymore. You're just a content creator. But, you know, all the same, we just want to be, you know, seen and heard like everyone else, and to build community, and interaction is important, and, you know, a sense of being approachable and someone you can talk to, not just a voice you hear on a video and then you're done and you don't hear them again for 2 weeks, that kind of thing. You know, we want to be there and present, and, you know, theory craft with y'all. So just know that about us. We're here with good intentions, but we're having some trouble getting around, so we're not giving up. And I think that I kind of said all I could really say at this point about the kind of revelation that I had about what I think control is, where the inspiration came from, what all the slides mean, that the not mother is a character, an evil entity, you know, referred to in Twin Peaks, not a mythological creature from, you know, Norse mythology or something like that. That it's different. I mean, although people, you know, do believe that there is a Judy or Jode entity in real life, that's not what this is, you know, referring to. This is referring to what they believe in Twin Peaks in the episode. And again, that's episode 8 of The Return, season 3. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor and go watch it. It's a wonderful episode. It's amazing. It's kind of gory, I'm going to tell you that. The woodsman scenes, really gory. It's called God of Light, so I kind of forget about that. But anyway, like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go, I don't know, you can buy the episode, I think, on Apple TV, maybe. I don't know where you can buy it. We just watched it. I don't know where we watched it actually, but yeah, just do it. I think you'll love it, and I think you'll make the connections as well. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it there, because I'm all out of what I came here to say. I was so excited, and I just jumped right in and just, you know, took off at lightning speed. So we'll just do that. We'll leave it there, and then if there's any follow-up, if we get questions, if we get questions in the chat or in the video once we put out the VOD, because we'll do that at some point tomorrow. put out the VODs that we could be under videos in our video section on YouTube and kind of get it off of Twitch, because we want to use that for streaming games. But anyway, if you listen live, thank you so much. Really means a lot. And if you watch us later, again, same thing. It means a lot. Thank you so much. And we'll be back, I'm sure, soon. And we'll see you then. Thanks.